Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is March 30th, 2023. Hopefully, this episode finds you well in good spirits with high hopes. As for me, I am doing very well. I feel like I'm doing good. I guess we'll get a little bit more personal here inside of the food corner. I really don't have too much to report, sadly. I did we can do a little snack corner. How about that? I'll give you a little treat. My treats. Well, yeah. I had a chocolate payday, and then I had free little cupcakes from work. One was a little vanilla white iced one, and then the other was a chocolate white iced one. Of course, I was able to get my hands on at least two of them things. Gotta say, the white or the vanilla was just better. They were just and proof was definitely in the pudding here because I saw today because this happened like yesterday. I saw today they're like, oh, we have some more. We have like leftovers. Feel free to take one, and they were all chocolate. I was like, yep, that sounds about right. That's how I would rank them myself. But personal corner, like I said, overall, I've been doing good, feeling good. I just, it's one of those things, and this is where I just like to every once in a while just get a little candid, keep it real behind the curtain, where I have because I don't want to even call it imposter syndrome. I feel like with imposter syndrome, you have to hit a certain kind of status, all the while feeling like you were never this guy, you were never gonna be this guy, you're a flub, you're a faker, you're a phony. Whereas for me, I just have this feeling of like, this content sucks. Like I was listening back to myself. I was like, I hate this. This is garbo. And I know that people have that feeling sometimes with the content that they make. For me, I am definitely always going to try to be my toughest critic because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I feel like I know what a good podcast is supposed to sound like. And I listen to mine. I'm like, oh, this just isn't it. We're not hitting. We're not kicking. But I also remind myself that it's not so much about me being the best podcast or doing the best thing. It's about the journey I'm on with doing this, how it is about news, but it also is about me at the same time. And I know that's a weird juxtaposition that you don't really see often, but this is the space I wanted to make. And I kind of realized that I was just kind of blogging. And even though it's not a perfect thing, it's still mine. I still like that even though it feels cringe at times and I make mistakes and I make flubs, that I'm trying not to do any ums, trying not to do my and ums, but I feel good coming back to this and seeing not so much the growth, but just the timeline that I've created with the news and myself, and it does feel good. And obviously, I appreciate everyone who's supported me on my newsies, on my friends. You guys are great. Gals are awesome. Everyone in between, I love you all. I don't know why I'm making it sound like this is like an end thing or anything like that. Obviously, I'm gonna keep on chugging, chewing. No derailments over here. But it was just one of those weeks where I took stock in this project, and I was like, I feel like I suck, but I'm happy to do it because I would do it for no money. I would do it for fun. When me and my friend got into this, it was just for the laughs and it was for the go of it. And ever since I took to it, I just have never wanted to stop, and I don't see myself wanting to anytime soon. So on that note, we will get into the news. Wish me luck. Let's see, from NBC News, Nashville school shooter fell into an emotional spiral after the recent death of a close friend. Ex-classmate says. Friends of Audrey Hale, 28 years old, still can't grasp how the loving teenager they knew could go launch a deadly attack that killed 6 people. Which at the top, I do want to, cover that part too. There's a lot here. This is obviously, I mean, we have school shootings in America all the time. It's not new, sadly. I think we've hit over like 1,000 already, and March isn't even done. It's crazy, all the shootings, all the violence that takes place, especially just specifically gun violence. But This took place at Covenant School in Nashville. Also, the little bit of backup reference I have from the ABC 7, but I just wanted to kind of just get the names of all the victims. It was 3 students and 3 staff members. Let's see. Evelyn Deekhouse, 9 years old. Mike Hill, 61. William Kinney, 9. Catherine Kunze, 60. Cynthia Peak, 61. And Haley Shrugs, 9. But Audrey Hale, who I also just want at the start of it, she identified as male towards the end of her life, I believe. At least that's how they were posting online. But a lot of family, and I think especially too, a lot of people in the moment, at least on the scene, identified them as Audrey Hale. And in the stories they talk about and reference her as a woman, because that's how she lived most of her life, I believe. Now, that being said, I think it's one of those things where when we talk about the shooters, when we talk about the victims, it's always a very black and white thing. And I get that. And I think the only time we stop to talk about the shooter is this the blanket term of like, well, this person had mental illness. And this is why they did what they did. And we need to like solve this problem. At least that's something that a lot of conservatives use as a talking point. Now, there's usually no follow through with that in terms of, okay, well, what are you going to do about the mental illness? We're not going to fund anything to make things easier, that's for sure. And then that's usually about it. That's usually the end of the conversation. And then we just complete the loop. I think this is no different in that regard. I do think I've seen, at least, going through social media and things like that, there's like this growing trend in these situations to say, well, oh, look at all of these people who are transgender or a part of the LGBTQ, movement. Look, like they're the shooters. They're doing it. It's their mental illness. It's their whatever, that they're part of the problem. I see memes like this. I see talk like this. It is a very constant thing. It's very upsetting because all these things are deflections about what is going on. And then, of course, you have on the left, the talk is, well, in this situation with Audrey Hale, they were able to get 7 guns legally. They were just able to get them. I believe at least 2 of them were, I believe they might have been automatic rifles. I'm not 100% sure. But essentially, they were able to shoot through the doors of the school. I believe they pulled up to the side. It's also a school that they went to. They shot through the doors. They went through, commenced to doing what they were going to do. And I will say something I want, which I don't want to say begrudgingly, but it's something that it's like, if these people are here to do what they're going to do, the cops are going to come in and do what they were going to do. It seemed like they were way more efficient, at least comparing it to the Uvalde situation of last year. Now, granted, we've had a few school shootings in between that, of course, but in this situation, there was like pretty decent body cam footage that I was able to find and see. Obviously, it's very sad to see anyone die in a shooting. I feel like, obviously, when you're playing video games, it's one thing. And maybe as a millennial generation on down, maybe there's a bit of people a little bit desensitized because, I don't know, you could go on the internet and just see dead bodies and things like that. But to me, it's always like, whoa, shit, fuck. Like that. But, seeing these cops, do the searches, going through all the doors, checking, being very thorough. They go to the first floor. They get to the second floor of the school, and Hale is shooting out of the window at cops coming in, and they essentially yell at them to put the gun down. They don't. They shoot. It's pretty cut and dry after that. So I at least got to say, hey, there was efficiency there. They didn't sit behind a door all huddled up, fumbling over who's going to lead what and do what. Like, it was clearly boom, 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 boom. But yeah, that being said, and we can go over, what the motives, like I said, in terms of Hale, in the article, they talk about how, they were devastated over the loss of Sydney Shree Sims. I'm in a traffic accident. Now, I know, like I said, when you get into this, when you talk about humanizing the shooter, things of that nature, it's something that people go, well, that doesn't, you don't need to do that. This person ended plenty of people's lives that are never going to have a chance. I agree. Like, I get that. I understand that sentiment. I understand that emotion. I just also see how this is weaponized, though, and politicized. And I just feel like it is something that you wind up inevitably having to talk about because one group is going to make this an issue or another and weaponize it to distract the whole conversation that I feel like is going to help potentially solve these things. Which I've said before, and I don't know, I get tired of saying. But I just feel like better regulation solves these issues at least more. You have less of these things. But obviously, it sucks when, like, what we had a couple weeks ago, we talked about Biden passing some executive things and like, hey, it's going to help the thing. But there's no federal red flag laws that I think would have helped in the situation. I will say, I feel like the parents were involved and were trying to do their best by hail. It just, even with the cops too, where they were aware because the parents were calling and saying, hey, like, they have all these guns, like, we can't get rid of them all. And in the situation, like, there's no red flag law in Tennessee. So what can you do? Like, the cops' hands are even tied in the situation. The parents' hands are tied in the situation. This is a 28-year-old adult at the end of the day. And you can buy these things from, like, when you're 18, right? Like, shit. You're just bearing arms. The Second Amendment, baby. With no regulations, with no restrictions, you're uncapped. You're allowed to do this thing, and you just you make your own Punisher. I don't know. And at the same time, I can honestly peel it back, and I can talk to myself as an Ohio man. Do I own any guns? No. Do I get the appeal of guns? Yes, of course. Like, I understand it. I get it for home protection. I get it for fun. I get it for sport. Awesome. But it's upsetting as hell to, when you're looking at this shit week in, week out, to just see all this violence. And people go, oh, well, these were just not, like, they just use knives. Oh my gosh, I saw this thing. Guys, I gotta vent a little bit here. An old classmate of mine, they were religious posting on their Instagram stories, and they said something, I'm going to paraphrase a little spiel, but David had a rock, Goliath had a rock, but it's important to have faith. And it's like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like, shut up. Like, that peels me out of my mind, yo. Because even when I was a religious person, even when I was hip deep in the Lord, I was just like going full Jesus freak on the fucking timeline. I would never use this rationale to say, oh, well, it's just rocks, baby. Like, no. This is like God's holy slingshot. And then you got like a bunch of like Gideon stones to like, no, it's not the same. It's not the same. And it's just weird where people want to take these conversations when it's just clearly, if you look at real stats, real numbers, that if you just even just limit the access to these assault rifles and things of that nature, it does make things better. And if you just make them a blanket thing, it just makes things better. But people don't want to hear that. People want to be able to buy what they want, how they want. They really don't want restrictions. Some people do, some people don't. Most people don't. Especially, like I said, the view from Ohio, people are trying to bear arms. It just is what it is. So it's a very sad thing. What else to cover? I know that Hale had like a manifesto, yada yada yada. That's very classic shooter shit. It's a bummer. It's sad. I try to cover it and not look away from this kind of stuff. I do obviously like the average American get numb to it my own way. That's of course, but I do hope that we live in a world that has less of these shootings. Being honest with you, do I think we're gonna? No, I don't. I don't do the utopian thing of thinking we're gonna live in a world where there's gonna be zero gun violence. We're just gonna all hold hands. No, we're not gonna we the world this, or we are the world this. But anyway, we're gonna move from the bad news. We're gonna swing on to what me as a filthy lib would call a dub. But I truly just think this shit is funny. So yeah, we're gonna use this to take a little break. You know how we do. Let me read it. New York, from the Yahoo News, but I'm sure you can find this anywhere at this point. New York grand jury votes to indict Trump in hush money case. Live updates. Live updates. Whew. I gotta tell you, a newsy tip. Whenever they say live updates, it's always a very bittersweet thing. It's very hard to glean information from them. It'll give you part and parcel, but let's say I want to like give you guys a whole story, I'm gonna have to like riff off of this, which I think I can do all right. Hold on, let me have my drink. Oofa. But yeah, this is a big day for Trump haters, big day for Trump lovers. Both are going ballistic right now, one way or another. Unless you're just smart and understand this is like just a big clusterfuck, whatever. Kind of a nothing burger in a way, which is maybe sad to say, but I think that's more on the justice system, less about the people involved. But a New York grand jury investigating Donald Trump's role in a hush money payment made to porn star Stormy Daniels voted to indict the former president on Thursday, according to multiple reports. Trump has confirmed the development in a blistering statement attacking the Manhattan district attorney. I'll paraphrase that. Why you so obsessed with me? Oh boy, I wanna know. That's more or less what Trump said. It's like, why aren't you guys busting all the murderers and criminals? Why are you worried about me though? Clearly, this is so political. Blah, blah, blah. And you know what? I'll give it to him. On this, sure. It's politics. It's politics as usual. What is it? D.A. Bragg. I should know his full name, but we're using his last name right now. Maybe it's Allen. But he has been, trying to cook up this case. I don't say cook up as like he's just making this shit up. This is stuff that you can pick up, and it has come out and spilled out. Like, I've heard podcasts talking about it on and off throughout this week, and you can go back to like when these things kind of broke out. People were talking about it then. But essentially, Stormy Daniels, Donald Trump, and this is me just giving you like a quick Spark Note version, as Isaiah would tell it. But Trump and Stormy Daniels, they meet up. I can't remember the convention or whatever the fuck it was, but they were both there. Trump is smitten by Stormy. He meets up with her. He's like, hey, they're vibing, quote unquote vibing. And for me, I think Stormy Daniels in the situation is like, hey, you're a person in the business. You see this guy, obviously he's smitten by you. He's into you. You're going to give him time, and you're going to see where this goes, what happens, whatever. Fast forward a little bit. Trump and them are chilling. They're hanging out. And at least this is like, I guess, allegedly or whatever, they wind up hooking up. It's described as sex, which getting a picture of how Donald Trump fucks is pretty like, ugh. But these are the things you do. Like, honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you and say I did it for you. No, I wanted to know, because I'm just a sicko. I just like learning about this kind of shit. I like learning about all this dumb stuff. I do try not to talk too much about Donald Trump, though. I think it's a baited conversation. It usually goes nowhere. But I've said before, I will wait until there's like a criminal charge of things of that nature, bigger lawsuits, stuff like that. Then yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. I try not to stay too much about the drama, but anyway, once it happens, then the floodgates kind of open, and I get a chance to really just kind of talk about it a little bit. So anyway, like I said, they're fucking. That happened. They then later continue to have a bit of a correspondence. Trump even suggests at the point, because this is around the time where he's still on The Apprentice, still like doing that shit, that he can get on The Apprentice, which is very hard. I believe like maybe the only like porn star or actor at that time, actress, whatever, who had been like on a primetime show like that would be like Jenna Jameson, maybe. Yeah, and I think she might have been on that show as like a little cameo or something like that. But Stormy wasn't going to get that kind of treatment. But Donald Trump was just blowing it up. And I think essentially after Stormy Daniels realized nothing's going to materialize from this, the correspondence more or less stopped. But I just couldn't imagine like chilling, watching like Shark Week or whatever, or Shark Tank. I don't know, just chilling, watching like TV with Donald Trump and his jammies or whatever. That'd be a weird hangout. But anyway, fast forward a bit from all of that. There's essentially a trace between, I believe, Donald Trump to Michael Cohen to Stormy Daniels, in which there is hush money paid. So I believe Cohen pays it more or less out of pocket, but then Trump then pays Cohen back. Now, potentially, there's a chance that this might be campaign money that might have been used, but I don't know if that's necessarily a concrete thing here. It might just be that they are trying to get the indictment over the fact that Donald Trump used hush money, period, and did a series of collusion to hide it. And this all came up, like it all came to a head in 2016 when he's running for president. So it all kind of potentially coalesces into a potential situation that they're trying to get an indictment for. But obviously, people on the right are screaming, this is all political, this is a hit job, blah, 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 blah. Like, right before I got on, because obviously this is all taking place today, it's all popping off. Like, Fox News is on fire. They're yelling at each other, this is crazy. They're calling senators up. They're saying, hey, hey, Senator, what are you going to do to fix this? And the senator's just running out talking points. They're talking about George Soros for some fucking reason because they're just doing that dumb shit that they like to do, dog whistling. And I don't know what's going to happen. I'm very curious. I'm as interested as everyone else. CNN, obviously, they're talking about it. They're going crazy, doing the live update tickers as well. I think a fun little development, they did talk to DeSantis, or at least DeSantis' people. They said, hey, we're not going to extradite him or anything like that. So they are standing by that. Their man. Though I will say DeSantis, I don't want to say he's cracking, but I think this is something I'm going to do a little bit of talking about in the Patreon. I'm going to save it till Monday. But we're going to get into our guy. We're going to get into Mr. Meatball a little bit later. But I don't know. That's more or less a quick catch up. There's definitely more to add, to talk about. I could polish this off, talk about it a little bit better in the future. But obviously this is developing. Hey, Trump is going to be a little bit more into the podcast. He's coming back in a big way. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about here. No, that's it. We can roly-poly on. We're going to talk about some Ukraine news from the Associated Press. Actually, it's not Ukraine news. My bad. It's Russia news. Then we'll get to the Ukraine news. From the AP, Associated Press. Russia arrests Wall Street Journal reporter on spying charge. So this was a big development. I know before we've talked about, big arrests in Russia, people who are detained, big swaps. We'll see what's going to happen from here. But essentially, Evan Gershkovich, 31 years old, who is a Wall Street Journal reporter, was arrested by Russia Security, or the FSB, in Yekaterinburg over espionage charges. So the Journal is obviously denying it vehemently. They are standing behind him. They're like, there's no reason for this. He has his credentials. He's verified. There's no reason for him to be arrested for this kind of shit. But they're saying, no, it's alleged that he was looking into things that he shouldn't be looking into despite him being a journalist, which to me is very murky. But there's been a history of this in terms of Russia, so it's not new. It's just definitely sad because they are not quick to negotiate. They're not quick to negotiate. Obviously, we've talked about in pretty good detail about Brittany Griner, how she had to go through a whole 10-month ordeal, obviously sentenced to much longer time. The whole psychological trauma of that just for having some hash oil, you know? And we've also talked about Paul Whelan, who is a Michigan corporate security executive who has been imprisoned in Russia since December of 2018, also on espionage charges. Now, his family has said those charges are baseless. Needless to say, Russia has been really dogged to not let go of this man. We wanted to do a double swap for Paul and Brittany. There was another person who I'm forgetting his name we've also covered, but we were only able to get him out because he had some really serious injuries. He was sick. He wasn't doing well. But they are dogged about Paul, and I'm not trying to sit there and say that he's not. But the whole thing about him having a USB, and he was doing a whole wedding, and he was shooting all these photos, but he had to go get this USB from this guy at a hotel. It does seem sus. I'm not going to say that doesn't, but obviously I would like him to get out of jail. I don't want to see anyone rot in jail unless you're a really super bad guy. What the fuck? We talked about it when it came to the spy balloon shit. I don't care about spies, dude. I just don't. Everyone is doing it. If you are a superpower, you're spying. That being said, I don't want to dissuade to the Gershkovich situation. You're a journalist. You should be allowed to be a journalist anywhere and everywhere. But also, I've said this before on the podcast, I admire journalism so fucking much. It was the thing that I wanted to do going into college for the one semester I did before I dropped the fuck out, was journalism. But I saw how little you got fucking paid for it. Then I saw what it's like to be a hotshot, cool journalist, the ones that I would look up to and read it about in Rolling Stone or whatever. And I'm you have to do scary, hard, ridiculous ass work. And I just want to live my fucking life. And I got to live that. That's hard enough as it is. So I just was no, I'm cool on all that. Needless to say, now we're here podcasting about shit. That being said, it's definitely just a shitty, odd situation for Gershkovich. Hopefully he gets out of this and doesn't have to do a bunch of time. Hopefully it's a quicker swap. We'll see. But also, like I said, once again, referencing Paul Whelan, I hope he gets out too. And it's not just, Paul Whelan and this guy. There are plenty of people who are. And this is something that most likely is going to be employed by Russia to get a swap engaged anyway, because we have people of theirs. So, we'll just see. Time will tell. But yeah, this is just news that's been coming down the pike, so I wanted to cover that. Also, this is a bit lighter, but at the same time, it's been something I've been kind of waiting to, for the ball to drop, I guess you could say. From the BBC, IOC recommends Russian and Belarusian individual athletes compete as neutrals. So this is a charged topic that came up. It's been kind of in the works for, at least I've been hearing about it for a few weeks, but I was, like I said, waiting to hear what the result or recommendation would be. But now this recommendation only extends to individual athletes, not teams. So what that means is if you're a Russian hockey team or a Belarusian hockey team, you guys still can't compete as neutrals. That's not an option. That's not a thing you can do. But let's say you're in cycling. Let's say you're in tennis. Let's say you're in an individual sport. Then you as yourself can claim, I'm just a neutral competitor. I just want to compete. I'm not trying to represent. I'm not going to fly my flag for my country. I just want to compete as myself. And you will be allowed to do that. At least that's what the recommendation is saying. Now, that has mixed reactions. There are some people, especially from Ukraine, that are saying, well, this is not fair. This isn't right. These people should not be allowed to compete. While meanwhile, the country that, whether or not they're representing, quote unquote, or not, is committing atrocities. Also, we've covered last year where we saw people competing in gymnast events and things of that nature. I don't know if they were Olympic or not. I can't really remember. I don't think they were, but I don't know. essentially they're like throwing up Z's and shit like that. And I mean, it does kind of go to show that from last year to this year, even though this conflict is raging on, maybe there is a bit of a changing of sentiments. Maybe people are saying, hey, we can't sit here and just keep persecuting Russians as a whole or individually because the nation they're tied to is at war. They're doing this conflict. Maybe we do have to say, hey, like in this situation, we're going to show some lenience or at least a chance to compete. I think personally that's okay. Maybe that's the hot take that I'm walking into or not. I don't know. But I think that's fine. I think it's a fair compromise. Because at the end of the day, these are sports. And how long are you going to have? Like, is the goal to say, no, you can't, if you're a Russian, you got to be in Russia and just be sad and mad and, like, just upset unless you go overthrow Putin right now. Like is that the goal? Is that the point of all these sanctions and bannings and all that stuff? Because I don't think that's how this should work. I don't know. Maybe I'm going against the flow there. I don't know. But I also understand, too, where if you're competing as a Ukrainian and you're seeing these people, it can hurt. It has its own kind of sting. I can understand that sentiment, too. So I'm not trying to sit there and say I'm willing to die on this hill. I just, that's where my default kick is, to just say, yeah, let them compete. At least as individuals, I think that's fair. But yeah, I mean, I guess these are recommendations. I think they more or less are going to go through as such, but we will see. Let's see. But that's more or less it there. But I have one more thing to cover. I'm going to take my last break. I don't know why I sang that. Ooh, Nelly. All right, I'm back. From Al Jazeera. Whew. Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu delays judicial overhaul after protests. Benjamin Netanyahu says he will delay reforms for several weeks after tens of thousands protested against the plans. Now, I gotta give it to the people of Israel. They really protested. I know it's big when you're shutting down fast food chains. Like, that's big. When McDonald's can't open up because people are so active on the streets, that's a good thing. That's a great thing. I will say, though, this is a bittersweet moment of protest, I think. It is a big highlight that Bibi decided to not ramrod like Macron did his plan right there on the spot. That being said, nothing about what he has said as of late, as of now, has said he's backing down or that his coalition is backing down. And not to mention, the big L here is that fucking Ben Gvir, more or less, it's almost like Bibi Netanyahu is in a situation where he's like George Bush Jr. and then like Dick Cheney is like Ben Gvir. And with Ben Gvir, he's like, okay, all right, I don't like this. We don't like this. The party does not like this alt-right party. We're not okay with this. But I get it. I see it. There's a lot of stuff going on. How about this? You give me my own chunk of the National Guard, and we'll let you do the pause. That sounds fine to me. That's crazy. That's quote unquote a concession that needs to be made. It's upsetting to me because I don't understand why this guy needs a fucking guard, like his own little squad. That just feels very like just ancient Roman to me. Like, what is it, the Protean Guard, whatever they are? I don't understand why he needs that. I understand why it's a compromise that needs to get made, but I think I've heard where it's like there's just some cultures where it's like politicians will have sometimes their own little militia to kind of enforce their own things so they can just get things done quicker. And that just doesn't like like this is supposed to be a democracy, by the way. Like this is just supposed to be a brass tacks, and there are times where you even hear Netanyahu try to say, "Well, what we're trying to do is make this like a parliamentarian thing, just like they're doing over in the UK." And I even heard what is it from the BBC, and I tout their praises a lot. But there are certain times where you just see them kind of show their hands as like the Tory-led thing that they are, where they're just more or less like they're just conservative shit. It's just conservative talk. Like it's like Fox News, but just their Fox News is like CNN to me. Like that's just how it feels from my perspective as an American. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong there, but there's just certain times where they just tip their hand where they're like, well, yeah, like maybe like let's let Bibi cook a little bit here. Like, what's the difference? And it's like there's a lot of cultural difference. Is more or less how someone had to explain it to the guy asking, and it's like, yeah, man, like it's just they don't have some king guy also along here to go. And I don't know. I'm more or less skipping news coverage on the king, Prince Philip, King Philip, whatever. He's in Germany, whatever. But essentially, it doesn't play out nearly the same way, but maybe it does, and it just gives power in a way that doesn't work well, and it's not democratic. And maybe it's just easier to see in the situation with Israel. I like that. That's my take there. But I'm glad to see people come out and protest, and at least it has pushed the conversation. It's kicked the can down about a month because now Knesset, their parliament, if you will, is on break. So we'll see. There is potential talks of negotiations, but I really think this is just a stall tactic to say, hey, you guys can get back to work now, right? You guys can chill out, relax. Everything's going to go back to normal. Maybe you'll forget about this a little bit. Maybe you'll just chill out. And then I'll come back and I'll just ram this down your throat, just like I plan to do. Because he's not talking about stopping. And if he gets what he wants, then essentially the Supreme Court will just be there, but they won't have any power. They won't have any teeth. But I mean, seeing the military step up, seeing people protest, that's good. But I guess what's the opposite of a silver lining or whatever? I'm doing it again, the idioms. Kick, kick, kick. But I wish, like, something that's just so not in the conversation that is really sad here is that this is supposed to be a two sovereign nation yet again, right? We're supposed to have that conversation, right? But really, these are just the Israeli people fighting for their rights that they feel are threatened. Whereas, what about the people who are in your own country that you're occupying? Like, at this point, do you even still call it that? Like, this is their, like, you've annexed it. It's yours. And you talk, like, you see the people of this government, despite however the spectrum, talk as if it's just theirs. But these people live here. These are whole people, and they're not in the conversation at all. And it feels it's almost like they never get the chance to be, unless it's about, oh, it's the violence, and this is why we need to take these settlements, which is something that I don't talk about a lot either. Is the situation that goes on with the settlement stuff. I learn a little bit more as time goes on, but it's just like, what do I cover then? Where it's just like you cover these brutal attacks, and by some sides they're called like almost like a tit for tat, but it's not. The scale is just not. I'm sorry. Like, you can call me biased for saying that, but it's just not a tit for tat. And it's allowed by one side and it's more criminalized by the other. And you just see this inching and like these loss of land by people who are supposed to just be allowed to live here and at least have an existence. And it's just being slowly but surely stripped from them. And that's not in this conversation at all. And it just feels like it never will be. And obviously this is something that's been going on since before I was even a thought. And it will go on probably when I am ashes in the dirt. I don't know. But it definitely makes me sad that all this shit just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It's all this conflict. And I just feel and see the world like shifting more and more to this conservative like whirlpool, it feels like. That being said, I'm happy to cover it, as crazy as that sounds. I am so thankful for you guys listening. I'm sorry for running so long, but it looks like we made it. If you'd like to support the podcast, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/says Isaiah News. You get bonus episodes. Like I said, I'm gonna talk about Ronnie probably on Monday. That's probably gonna be my highlight, but we'll see how things develop. There'll be more. Also, you get a hot link to the Discord. I show some food. I post some extra news sometimes. I try to do little discussions and stuff there. It's nice. It's neat. So there's a quick link there. But you can always just hit me up for free to get that as well. I will shoot that to you. But then you also get a newsy roll call. I do that at the top of every month. So there's that. If you'd like to participate and become a member, I will plug anything you'd like. Essentially, it's like almost like you get like ad space, if you will. But yeah, I mean, I just like to show love to the people that support me. That being said, free ways to hit me up, isaiahnews1@gmail.com. And I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter with the podcast, with myself. Also, Instagram, all that. So I'm pretty easy to find. So feel free to leave a comment, shoot a message. I love the conversation. I would love to say, oh, I love feedback, but I'm a sensitive guy. I'm real about that. Please be nice. Please, I'm just a little guy. But I do appreciate and love you guys so much. All feedback is cool. I really do just appreciate you guys listening. Even if you guys tell me, like, you sound like shit. Like, that's okay. True, bestie. Thank you, though. Thank you for, like, holding me up like I'm dying Peter Parker in Spider-Man 1. You're the reason I do it. You're my hero, and I hope to be maybe the hero you need one day. So, hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love you. Bye-bye. Mwah.